Welcome back to MonsterVerse Unbound, where we see what would happen if things in Legendary's MonsterVerse went a little differently. This time we're rolling back the clock to 1999 to see how Godzilla would have gone if Joe Brody had died instead of Sandra. So to begin, when the Muto attacks Janjira, instead of Sandra Brody, it's Joe who goes into the reactor and is killed in the ensuing destruction. Now at first this might not seem like such a huge change, but I can see Sandra handling her loss very differently. Instead of shutting down and becoming obsessive, she throws herself into family life and distances herself from her career after that trauma. Maybe even remarries, but she still supports Ford when he goes into the Navy. It's only years later that she's sought out by an old friend who now works at the Yucca Mountain Nuclear Waste Repository in Nevada, where they've been picking up tremors similar to the ones she and Joe detected at Janjira all those years ago. She decides to reach out to whoever's studying the site of the Janjira meltdown, and soon gets a visit from one Dr. Vivian Graham. Of course, this all happens shortly before the Muto pod at Janjira hatches, and they realize the second pod at Yucca Mountain must still be alive. Dr. Graham goes in with a squad of Marines to destroy it before it hatches, but it responds to the threat and hatches slightly earlier, killing Graham and the accompanying Marines. From here, things go pretty much as in the main timeline. The military tries luring the Mutos offshore with a nuke, it fails, Godzilla and the Mutos fight in San Francisco, Godzilla wins the fight and collapses from his injuries. The difference is, up to this point, Ford has still been on leave. So instead of being part of the operation, he's focused on getting his family out of the city, which means the nuke goes off in the middle of San Francisco. Godzilla absorbs most of the fallout, healing himself and in the process preventing the rest of the West Coast from becoming irradiated, but San Francisco has been completely wiped off the map. The US government covers up its role in the disaster and claims Godzilla somehow caused the explosion. Dr. Serizawa, of course, still reeling from the loss of his friend, refuses to go along with the cover-up and resigns, while Sandra becomes a member of Monarch. A number of failed military attacks are made on Godzilla, now public enemy number one, who soon comes to see humanity as his enemy. After being called back into service, Ford is killed on board a ship that's sunk by Godzilla. And it's here that the change really begins to ripple out. Since the entire Russell family was wiped out in the San Francisco disaster, there's no Orca device and no mass awakening of Titans 5 years later. But the US government is putting much more resources into exterminating the Titans, and throwing a lot of money at a project being developed by Walter Simmons and Apex Cybernetics. Sandra herself considers quitting Monarch after her loss, but Dr. Chen is the one who convinces her Godzilla will be needed someday. She accompanies Sandra to Outpost 66 in Antarctica, and shows her a monstrous, three-headed creature frozen in the ice that's slowly beginning to crack. Admiral Steins, she says, he's the man who pulled the weeds. It's an old story. The weeds choked the crops, so the man pulled the weeds. But then the crops poisoned the man. The weeds know when to grow, and Godzilla knows when to rise. Okay, thanks for watching. This was actually one of the first ideas I came up with for these videos, and I might like to continue this one at some point. That little speech in the end, I freely admit I lifted that from one of the IDW Godzilla comics. Also, apologies for this video having taken so long. Real life just sort of got in the way there, but I'm hoping to upload the next few episodes a bit more regularly. So like and subscribe, and next time...